All right, so you're thinking about becoming a forestry technician, huh? Trading in those spreadsheets for seedlings, I see. Sounds like you're ready to ditch the fluorescent lights for some actual sunshine.
Yeah, that's usually a good indicator that someone's looking for more than just a job. It's about connecting with nature, getting your hands dirty, and really making a difference.
Absolutely. And before you grab your hiking boots and, well, maybe not the chainsaw just yet, we're going to dive into these RoleCatcher resources you shared to make sure you've got all the information.
Great idea. These resources are super helpful. That detailed career guide, plus the interview prep tips, and even that unique job platform. They're going to be super valuable as you figure things out.
For sure. So RoleCatcher's guide starts off talking about, being hands-on, working outdoors, all that good stuff.
Right, the part that usually draws people in.
Exactly. But then it hits you with the reality check. Physical demands, sometimes unpredictable conditions, maybe even seasonal work. It's not always a walk in the park, right?
No, definitely not. It takes a lot of resilience. The guide mentions working in tough terrain, sometimes dealing with wildlife and being ready for any kind of weather.
You've got to be tough.
Uh,
Okay, but beyond the physical stuff, I was surprised to see them mention GIS software. I didn't realize tech skills were so important in forestry.
It's a perfect example of how technology is changing everything, forestry included. These days, technicians use GIS for a ton of things, mapping forest areas, monitoring tree health, even planning sustainable harvesting.
Wow, so it's not just about knowing your trees, it's about knowing your tech too. That actually makes me think about those skills they highlighted, like tree identification. I mean, I know an oak from a pine, but this sounds way more intense.
Oh yeah, it goes way beyond the basics. Think about it. You might need to assess the health of an entire forest spot, potential diseases, figure out which species are best for a certain area. That requires some serious tree knowledge.
Wow, that's a whole other level. I always thought forester technicians mostly just planted and maintained trees. This guide shows it's way more than that. You've got analysis, problem solving, even understanding the whole ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's a really fascinating blend of scientific knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
practical skills, and a deep respect for nature.
Now, speaking of practical skills, the guide also mentions being comfortable with tools and equipment. I'm guessing this is where the chainsaw image comes in.
Well, there's definitely some chainsaw action, especially for clearing trails or dealing with hazardous trees. But there's actually a whole range of equipment you might use, like brush cutters for undergrowth increment borers to check tree age, even drones for aerial surveys.
Drones. No, that's high tech. I'm realizing being a forestry technician isn't just about working in nature. It's about being at the forefront of how we understand, manage, and conserve our forests for the future. And speaking of being at the forefront, one of the things that really stood out to me about RoleCatcher was their whole approach to interview prep. It's not just like generic advice, they actually use AI to personalize it for you.
Yeah, it's really impressive, actually.
It is.
You upload your resume, you tell them about the job you're going for, and the AI actually analyzes all that to figure out what kinds of questions you're most likely to get.
It's like having your own personal interview coach, one that can predict those curveball questions before they even happen.
Yeah, exactly. And think about it. Walking into an interview knowing you've practiced answering questions that are specifically about that role, even your own specific experience, that's got to be huge for your confidence.
Oh, for sure. It's like you're showing them, hey, I'm not just prepared for any forestry job, I'm prepared for this forestry job.
But okay, even with the best preparation, actually landing an interview, that often comes down to getting your resume noticed in the first place, right? That's where RoleCatcher's job platform comes in. What makes it different from just using a regular old job board? It's all about being proactive. Instead of just giving you a ton of random job postings, they use their AI to analyze your skills. And then they compare those to what actual job descriptions are asking for. But here's the really cool part. They actually point out any gaps in your application, like before you even apply.
That is so smart. So instead of just sending your resume out to every forestry opening, you see you're only focusing on the roles where you actually have a good chance.
Exactly. It takes the guesswork out of it and really increases your chances of getting noticed by the right people.
It's like having a personal recruiter in your back pocket. It's really cool how RoleCatcher combines those powerful AI tools with that human touch.
Okay, but all of this leads us to the big question. What does a long-term career in forestry even look like?
That is the big question, and luckily the RoleCatcher guide gets into that too.
One thing I thought was interesting was how they showed all the different career paths you can take as a forestry technician.
So it's not just a straight line, you can actually specialize.
For sure. You can start out assisting with general forestry work, but as you get more experience, maybe you specialize in forest fire prevention and control, or urban forestry, or even become a certified arborist.
Oh, yeah. I remember reading about a senior forestry technician who had a PhD. That really stuck with me.
It shows you that lifelong learning is super important in this field. Lots of technicians end up going for more certifications degrees or even specialized training to move up in their careers.
So it's not just about the job title, it's about always learning and growing your passion. That's inspiring. But I have to say, with all this talk about technical skills and career paths, it makes you wonder, what about the people? What's it actually like to be part of a forestry team?
Oh, that's so important. It's not just about the trees, right?
Yeah.
It's about the people you work with, that shared sense of mission, the company
Yeah.
culture.
You could have all the right qualifications, but if you don't enjoy the day-to-day, the people you're working with, that passion for protecting our forests, it's not going to be fulfilling.
You're totally right. And that's not something you can always get from a job description or even an interview.
So how do you even begin to uncover that side of things? How do you know if you'd actually enjoy working at a certain place?
You've got to be proactive. You need to tap into the power of networking.
So you're saying it's not enough to just ace the interview. You got to actually do some digging and see if the company culture is a good fit. But how do you even start doing that?
It's all about reaching out to people you know. Networking. Talk to folks who are actually out there working in forestry, especially at the organizations you're interested in.
So just reach out and have a conversation. Is it as simple as sending an email or connecting on LinkedIn?
Pretty much.
Hmm.
Most people are happy to share their experiences, especially with someone who's genuinely interested in their field. You could ask about their career path, how they got to where they are now.
Ah, that makes sense.
And that can often lead to more specific questions about the company culture or what the job is really like day to day.
It's like getting a sneak peek behind the curtain, right? Beyond the fancy website and job description.
Exactly. You might find out something you wouldn't see anywhere else. Like maybe they have a great mentorship program or they really care about work-life balance.
Oh, that's a great point. I bet those kinds of conversations can also give you a sense of the team you know, like what's the leadership style, what's the overall vibe.
Absolutely. Don't underestimate the power of just listening and observing. How do people talk about their work, their colleagues, the organization? Do they seem enthusiastic and engaged? Do they feel valued?
So it's about reading between the lines a little bit and trusting your gut. If something feels off, it's probably a sign to keep looking.
Exactly. And remember, networking isn't just about finding a job. It's about building relationships, learning from others. Those connections can be valuable no matter what.
It's about becoming part of that forestry community even before you have the job. You know what? This started as a deep dive into becoming a forestry technician, but it's turned into a masterclass in figuring out what you want in a career and how to actually find it.
It all goes hand in hand. You got to be passionate about the work for sure, but you also got to be smart about finding the right environment, a place where you can really thrive.
So to wrap things up, if you're serious about forestry, don't just focus on the trees. See the whole forest. Build those technical skills. Embrace technology, but also build your network and trust your gut when it comes to finding the right fit.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
And remember, a fulfilling career, it's a journey, not just a destination. Stay curious, keep learning, and be open to new possibilities.
That is fantastic advice. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of forestry technicians. We hope you feel ready to take that next step in your career journey.